What if I told you that buried within your very being lies a fragment of the eternal, a spark of the true God, and that everything in this world has been designed to make you forget it exists? What if the religions you were taught, the systems you live within, the very cycle of birth and death itself were engineered not to liberate your soul, but to keep it imprisoned, harvesting your divine energy lifetime after lifetime? And what if ancient mystics, the Gnostics who were hunted and silenced nearly 2,000 years ago, left behind forgotten rituals and practices specifically designed to awaken that spark within you, to break the chains, to set you free? You're about to discover something most people will never hear in their entire lives. Not because it's hidden in some remote temple or locked away in a vault, but because those who benefit from your spiritual sleep don't want you to remember who you truly are. The Gnostics knew. They left instructions encoded in texts that were buried in the Egyptian desert for centuries, waiting for souls brave enough to reclaim what was stolen. Today, you're going to learn not just the philosophy, but the actual practices, the rituals they used to ignite the divine spark and escape the cycle forever. Be careful, soul. Once you remember, you can never truly forget again. In December of 1945, near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, a peasant farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman was digging for fertilizer at the base of a cliff when his shovel struck something hard. Inside a sealed clay jar, he found 13 leather-bound codices, ancient books that had been hidden there for over 1,600 years. What he'd discovered would shake the foundations of religious history and reveal a suppressed spiritual tradition that early Christian authorities had desperately tried to erase. These were the Gnostic Gospels, texts like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Secret Book of John, and dozens more that told a radically different story about reality, God, and the human soul. The Gnostics, from the Greek word gnosis, meaning direct knowledge or insight, were early mystics who claimed that salvation didn't come from faith or obedience to religious authorities, but from awakening to the truth of your divine nature. They taught that this material world, far from being the creation of a loving God, was actually the work of a false deity, a cosmic mistake that had trapped fragments of the true divine essence inside physical bodies. To the Orthodox Church Fathers, this was the most dangerous heresy imaginable. By the 4th century, Gnostic communities were systematically destroyed, their texts burned, their teachers executed or driven into hiding. For nearly 17 centuries, Gnosticism existed only as a whisper, known primarily through the angry refutations of its enemies. But the texts survived, and within them lies a cosmology so profound, so psychologically sophisticated, that it speaks directly to the spiritual crisis of our modern age. The Gnostic creation story begins not with Genesis, but in the pleroma, the fullness, an infinite realm of pure light and consciousness where the true God, the monad, dwells beyond all conception. From this source emanated divine beings called eons, perfect expressions of divine attributes. Among them was Sophia, whose name means wisdom. In her desire to create, to know the unknowable, Sophia acted alone, without her divine counterpart. This passionate but flawed creation gave birth to something grotesque and ignorant, a being that would come to be known as the Demiurge. The Demiurge, sometimes called Yaldabaoth, believed itself to be the only God, the supreme creator. In its arrogance and ignorance, it declared, "I am God, and there is no other." This is the God of the Old Testament, the Gnostics whispered, the jealous deity demanding worship and obedience. The Demiurge then created the material cosmos, a prison realm of matter, time, and death, and it fashioned human beings to inhabit it. But here's where the story takes a turn that changes everything. When the Demiurge formed the first human, Adam, it unwittingly breathed into him a portion of the divine light it had inherited from Sophia. That breath, that spark, is your true self. You are not merely flesh. You are a fragment of the infinite, trapped in a prison of matter, guarded by forces designed to keep you asleep. The Gnostics called these forces the archons, cosmic rulers and authorities that govern the material realm and the invisible dimensions surrounding it. These entities feed on human suffering, fear, and spiritual ignorance. They are the architects of the reincarnation trap, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that keeps divine sparks returning to this realm, lifetime after lifetime, forgetting who they are, harvesting their energy, their attention, their worship. This wasn't just ancient mythology to the Gnostics. This was experiential truth, revealed through direct mystical insight, through practices and rituals designed to pierce the veil and see reality as it truly is. Now, let's go deeper, because this is where most people get stuck in the conceptual understanding without grasping the terrifying implications for their own existence. How exactly does this trap work? How do the archons and the demiurge keep billions of souls enslaved without them even realizing it? The answer is both simple and devastating: distraction, forgetting, and the illusion of freedom. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of your day is spent in genuine awareness, in presence, in connection to something deeper than your immediate thoughts and sensations? How often do you remember to ask, who is the one experiencing this? Most people go entire lifetimes without ever asking that question. They are so identified with their body, their emotions, their thoughts, their social roles, that they never discover the witness, the consciousness that observes all of these phenomena, but is none of them. That witness is your divine spark, and it has been buried under layers of conditioning, trauma, desire, and fear. The archons, according to Gnostic texts like the Apocryphon of John, operate through what we might call psychic manipulation and energetic parasitism. They cannot create. They can only imitate and corrupt. They work through the lower passions, the reactive mind, the ego's desperate need for survival and significance. Every time you react in anger, drown yourself in mindless entertainment, chase pleasure to avoid pain, or allow fear to dictate your choices, you're feeding the system that keeps you imprisoned. This isn't moral judgment. This is mechanics. The Gnostics understood that human beings are essentially divine consciousness trapped in biological machinery that's programmed to serve the prison. But it goes even further than this lifetime. The most insidious aspect of the trap is what happens at death. Here, the Gnostic texts align eerily with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, with ancient Egyptian funeral rites, and even with contemporary near-death research. When the soul leaves the body, it enters an intermediate realm, a space between worlds where it's vulnerable to deception. The Gnostics warned of false lights, of beings posing as angels or deceased loved ones, of a review process that manipulates the soul through guilt and attachment into accepting another incarnation. They spoke of the archons stationed at various levels of the cosmos, each demanding passwords, each testing the soul's knowledge and authority. What if the white light that everyone talks about in near-death experiences isn't the true divine source, but the demiurge's reincarnation mechanism? What if the life review, where you feel the pain you caused others and are made to feel you need to return to balance karma, is actually programming designed to manufacture consent for your own re-imprisonment? The Gnostics taught that true liberation requires gnosis, the direct knowing that transcends this system entirely, that recognizes these intermediate realms as part of the illusion. Without this knowledge, without preparation, the soul is like a child wandering through a carnival of predators, each one designed to lure it back into the wheel. And consider this: if such a system exists, wouldn't it also need to control the spiritual teachings available in the physical realm? Wouldn't it need to ensure that the religions and philosophies that dominate human culture keep people either looking outside themselves for salvation, or so mired in guilt and unworthiness that they never claim their divine authority? The Gnostics believed that the demiurge and archons had infiltrated and corrupted spiritual traditions, inserting doctrines of original sin, eternal damnation, and the need for intermediaries between the soul and the divine. They saw organized religion not as a path to God, but as another control mechanism, another layer of the prison. Look at how many spiritual traditions teach you to submit, to obey, to seek salvation from an external savior. Look at how karma is presented as cosmic justice rather than what the Gnostics understood it to be, a chain of cause and effect that keeps you bound to this realm through attachment and identification. Even the concept of unconditional love, as beautiful as it sounds, can become a trap if it means you must forgive and accept the forces that are literally feeding on your divine essence. The Gnostics weren't teaching hatred or bitterness. They were teaching discernment, the ability to recognize predatory energies masquerading as light. Why do you think you feel so exhausted all the time? Why does modern life feel like a constant drain, a hamster wheel of work and consumption and distraction? Why do the same patterns repeat in your relationships, your career, your internal struggles? Could it be that you're not just dealing with psychological issues or bad luck, but that you're actually leaking energy to forces that have a vested interest in keeping you in a low vibrational state? The Gnostics would say yes. They understood that attention is energy, that emotion is energy, and that unconscious human beings are essentially batteries for entities that exist just beyond our normal perception. But here's what terrifies the archons, what shakes the foundations of the demiurge's creation, the moment a divine spark begins to remember. The moment you start to question the narrative, to observe your thoughts rather than be consumed by them, to recognize the difference between your true self and the programs running in your psychological operating system, that's when the pressure increases. That's when life gets chaotic, when obstacles seem to multiply, when you might experience what spiritual teachers call the dark night of the soul. This isn't punishment, it's resistance. The system is trying to pull you back to sleep because a waking soul threatens the entire structure. Have you noticed that the more you awaken, the more resistance you face? Have you noticed how the world seems designed to prevent deep contemplation, genuine stillness, authentic connection to your inner being? Every notification, every crisis, every demand on your attention is potentially another thread in the net that keeps you from remembering who you are. The Gnostics weren't paranoid. They were awake in a world of sleepers, and they could see the machinery of control operating on levels most people never imagine. So here we arrive at the revelation that changes everything. The Gnostics didn't just diagnose the prison, they created methods to escape it. These weren't prayers to external deities or rituals of appeasement to cosmic powers. These were technologies of consciousness, practices designed to awaken the divine spark, to strengthen it, to prepare it for the journey through the archonic realms and back to the pleroma. What you're about to learn has been suppressed, dismissed as heresy, and hidden for nearly 2 millennia. But it's time. The veil is thinning, and souls are ready to remember. The first and most crucial practice the Gnostics employed was the cultivation of the observer. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not have will destroy you." What is within you is the divine spark, the consciousness that exists beyond thought, beyond emotion, beyond identity. The ritual of awakening begins with learning to observe yourself without judgment, to watch your thoughts arise and dissolve without identifying with them, to feel emotions move through you without believing you are those emotions. This practice shatters the primary mechanism of control, identification. When you believe you are your thoughts, the archons can manipulate you through thought. When you believe you are your emotions, they can steer you through fear and desire. But when you rest as the witness, the one who observes all phenomena but is touched by none, you begin to reclaim your sovereignty. The Gnostics practiced this constantly, training themselves to maintain awareness even in sleep, in dreams, and ultimately in death. They understood that consciousness is a muscle that must be strengthened, or it will be overwhelmed by the forces of forgetfulness. The second practice was the invocation of names and the use of sacred sounds. Throughout the Gnostic texts, you find lists of divine names, aeons, and formulas that function as passwords to bypass archonic control. These weren't mere words. They were vibrational keys, resonances that aligned the practitioner with higher frequencies and established their divine authority. When confronting archonic forces, whether in meditation, in dreams, or in the after-death state, the Gnostic initiate would declare, "I am a child of the true God, the Father of truth, the Mother of life. I carry the spark of the pleroma within me. You have no authority over my essence." This declaration isn't arrogance, it's remembrance. It's the soul reclaiming its true identity after countless lifetimes of amnesia. The archons can only control what consents to be controlled, what believes itself to be separate from the divine source. By speaking these truths, by vibrating these frequencies, the Gnostic warrior creates a field of protection and sovereignty around their consciousness. You can adapt this practice now. Stand before a mirror, look into your own eyes, and declare, "I remember who I am. I am not this body. I am not this story. I am infinite consciousness temporarily experiencing limitation. No force in this cosmos or beyond it has authority over my divine essence." The third practice involved what we might call visionary journeying or conscious dreaming. The Gnostics didn't wait until death to explore the archonic realms. They used meditation, fasting, breathwork, and sacred substances to induce altered states where they could perceive these dimensions while still anchored in the body. In these journeys, they would practice navigating past archonic gatekeepers, recognizing false lights, and maintaining awareness through disorienting transitions. This was rehearsal for the ultimate journey, the one every soul must take when the body fails. You can begin this practice through deep meditation. Sit in stillness and focus on your breath until your mind quiets. Then visualize yourself rising above your body, floating in a vast and luminous expanse. Notice what appears. Notice if beings or lights approach you. Practice discernment. Ask any entity that appears, "Are you of the true God, the infinite source beyond the demiurge?" Notice how they respond. Notice how you feel. The true divine doesn't demand worship or obedience. It recognizes itself in you. False lights will try to dazzle you, to make you feel small, to invoke guilt or fear. Learn to recognize the difference now, while you still have the safety of your physical anchor. The fourth practice was the radical embrace of gnosis through questioning everything. The Gnostics were heretics, not because they rejected truth, but because they rejected false authority. They questioned scripture, questioned religious leaders, questioned the very nature of the God they were told to worship. This practice of sacred doubt, of refusing to accept anything without direct experience and inner confirmation, was itself a form of liberation. Every time you question a belief, you create space for truth to emerge. Every time you refuse to accept something simply because an authority figure said it, you exercise your divine sovereignty. Ask yourself right now, what do I believe simply because I was told to believe it? What fears am I carrying that aren't even mine? What guilt has been programmed into me by systems that benefit from my compliance? The Gnostic path is one of ruthless self-honesty and fearless inquiry. It's uncomfortable. It's destabilizing. It can cost you relationships, identities, and the comfort of certainty. But it's the price of freedom. Now let's bring this into the practical realm of your daily life, because gnosis without application is just philosophy, and philosophy won't free you from the reincarnation wheel. The Gnostics understood that liberation isn't a single moment of enlightenment. It's a continuous practice of remembering, reclaiming, and refusing to consent to the mechanisms of control. Here's how you begin to ignite your divine spark and keep it burning in a world designed to extinguish it. First, establish a daily practice of conscious presence. This doesn't require hours of meditation, though that certainly helps. It requires the commitment to pause multiple times throughout your day and ask, "Am I aware right now? Who is the one experiencing this moment? Set reminders on your phone if you need to. The archons rely on your constant absorption in the stream of thought and external stimulus. Every moment you interrupt that absorption, you're cutting a thread in the net. Second, practice energetic hygiene. The Gnostics knew that we're constantly exchanging energy with our environment, with other people, with unseen entities. Learn to consciously seal your energy field. Visualize a sphere of light around you each morning, declaring that only that which serves your highest awakening can access your field. When you enter draining environments or interact with energy vampires, notice how you feel and consciously withdraw your energy. This isn't about becoming cold or closed. It's about being sovereign over your own life force. Third, begin the practice of retracing. Each night before sleep, review your day from the perspective of the observer. Watch yourself moving through your activities, your conversations, your reactions. Notice where you lost awareness, where you became identified with emotion or thought, where you gave your power away. Don't judge yourself, simply observe. This practice serves multiple purposes. It strengthens the observer consciousness. It helps you recognize patterns of unconsciousness, and it trains you to maintain awareness through transitions, which is crucial for maintaining consciousness through death. Fourth, study the Gnostic texts directly. Read the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the Apocryphon of John. Let their words resonate with the spark within you. Notice what rings true, not because it fits your existing beliefs, but because it awakens something that already knows. The divine spark recognizes truth when it encounters it. Your body might react, your mind might resist, but somewhere deep within, you'll feel the resonance of remembrance. Fifth, practice radical self-responsibility. This is perhaps the hardest teaching for most people to accept. The Gnostic path isn't about blaming the demiurge or the archons for your suffering. Yes, the system is rigged. Yes, forces are working to keep you asleep. But you are still the one choosing in each moment whether to remain unconscious or to awaken. You're the one choosing whether to react from programming or respond from presence. The trap only works because we consent to it, lifetime after lifetime. The moment you withdraw that consent, the moment you take full responsibility for your state of consciousness, everything begins to shift. Sixth, cultivate discernment above all else. Not every spiritual teaching is liberating. Not every entity claiming to be of the light actually is. Not every feeling of love and bliss indicates connection to the true divine. The archons can simulate these experiences. They're experts at it. Your only protection is the development of your inner knowing, that gut-level sense of truth that operates beyond logic and emotion. When you encounter a teaching or a being, notice how it makes you feel. Does it empower you or create dependency? Does it encourage your direct connection to Source, or does it position itself as a necessary intermediary? Does it respect your sovereignty or demand submission? Seventh, begin preparing for the transition of death right now. Don't wait until you're facing the end to figure out how to navigate what comes next. Visualize the death process. Imagine your consciousness separating from your body. Practice maintaining awareness as you fall asleep. Practice recognizing dream states. Each night offers a small rehearsal for the final journey. The Gnostics who died consciously, who maintained awareness through the transition, had practiced this for years or even decades. They knew where they were going. They knew what they would encounter. They had their passwords ready. And, finally, connect with others who are also awakening. The Gnostics formed communities of seekers who supported each other's remembrance. You're not meant to walk this path alone. Find your tribe, your fellow sparks who are also beginning to remember. Share your experiences, your insights, your struggles. The collective awakening amplifies individual gnosis. As more souls remember, the entire field shifts, making it easier for others to break through. So here we are at the end of this transmission, but really, it's just the beginning of your journey. You've been exposed to dangerous knowledge, the kind that can't be unlearned. You now know that you're not merely human. You're a divine spark wearing flesh, temporarily imprisoned in a material realm governed by forces that feed on your forgetfulness. You know that the cycle of birth and death is a trap, maintained by entities the ancients called archons. You know that most of what you've been taught about God, salvation, and the nature of reality was either corrupted or designed to keep you compliant. But more importantly, you now know the way out. The forgotten Gnostic rituals aren't complex ceremonies performed in ancient temples. They're practices of consciousness that you can begin right now, today, in this moment. They're the cultivation of awareness, the development of discernment, the reclamation of your divine sovereignty. Every time you pause to observe rather than react, you're performing the ritual. Every time you question authority and seek direct experience, you're igniting the spark. Every time you refuse to consent to the programs running in your mind, you're cutting the strings of the puppet masters. The archons are afraid of you, did you know that? They're terrified of souls who remember, who refuse to play by the rules of the illusion. Because once you're awake, you can't be controlled. Once you remember your true nature, you become a beacon that helps others remember. The system of control depends on sleeping souls, on forgotten sparks buried under layers of trauma and conditioning. But the moment you remember, the game begins to break. I'd created a comprehensive guide to help you deepen this work, a free ebook called Escaping the Illusion, a Gnostic guide to mastering reality. It contains expanded rituals, meditations, and practices that didn't fit in this video. You'll find the download link in the description below. This is not light reading. It's a manual for liberation drawn from the same ancient sources that church authorities tried to destroy. If this resonated with you, if you feel the spark within you beginning to kindle, leave a comment below sharing your experience. What's the biggest illusion you've awakened from? What practice will you begin today? Your words might be exactly what another soul needs to hear to take the next step in their own awakening. This community is growing, a network of remembering sparks recognizing each other across the noise of the world. And if you want to continue this journey with me, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We're going deep into the mysteries that most spiritual teachers won't touch, the forbidden knowledge that the architects of this reality don't want you to have. Each video is another key, another piece of the puzzle, another step toward your liberation. Remember, soul, you didn't find this video by accident, you were ready for this transmission. The question now is, what will you do with it? Will you let it fade back into the noise, another interesting idea that you'll forget by tomorrow? Or will you let it ignite something within you that cannot be extinguished, a fire of remembrance that burns away the illusions and reveals the infinite being you've always been? The choice has always been yours. The prison only works because we forget we hold the key. Welcome home, divine spark. It's time to remember who you are,